What is the most disturbing thing you've witnessed during school on school grounds? I went to high school in a very rural part of Pennsylvania. The seniors were allowed to drive to school and would get there early and hang out in the parking lot before homeroom. Well, one day a huge buck comes strutting into the parking lot. A couple of the redneck kids decide that they are going to kill it. So they get this deer cornered against the school, and I swear on all things holy this ducking deer jumps through a window and into a classroom. They don't let anyone in the school and call the cops and game wardens to get this thing out of there. Meanwhile it's bleeding everywhere because of the glass. So after about 45 minutes they finally get a hold of it and take it outside where it runs as fast as it can towards the woods. However, there's the main road through town before you get to the woods. As it's crossing the street it gets hit by car. It was a bad day to be a deer. It's a long story, but I'll try to make it quick. A guy followed my friends and me from middle school and idled when we stopped walking. We had to split up. Seems weird, but not too weird. We chat for a while. The guy never leaves the car. I realize that the windows, even the driver's side one, is tinted, which is illegal in my state. We talk for 15+ minutes. He doesn't move. I pull out my cell phone to tell my mom I'm going to be late. The guy peels away, and that's when we noticed he had no plates. To make it worse, my best friend was going to walk 4 blocks to her empty house because her dad didn't come home till 5. And she barely weighs 110 pounds. I have no doubt she would have been abducted if I hadn't taken out my phone. Edit. For all the people asking if I told my parents, I did. Eventually. Years later. My mom was really freaked out when I told her. She's a psychotherapist, and her speciality is the family members of murder victims. Why didn't I tell anyone? Because I never connected the dots until years later. My best friend, the one whose dad came home late, didn't even remember it. I just pushed it to the back of my mind as a weird thing. Until a guy who drove a very similar car exposed himself to my cousin in the adjacent neighborhood. Now that I'm older I have more of an awareness of all the terrible things that happen to kids. In retrospect, it should have been more obvious that something was wrong, especially since my parents were always clear to stay away from strangers. The thing I think we need to learn from this is to educate kids to stay together and keep a cell phone with them. I have also learned basic self-defense, and I always carry a whistle with me just in case. Massive fight in front of school. Kid gets hatchet axe out of car and lifts it above his head to hit the other kid on the ground and probably kill him. Principal takes axe out of kid's hand and knocks him with the butt end of the axe, basically saving the other kid's life. This happened in 1988, and that guy is still principal. He was in his early 30s back then. 2 girls get into a fight in the cafeteria. Shit goes down. Hair pulling, kicking, slapping. All of a sudden someone yells for an ambulance. Turns out during the fight one of the girls went into labor. If this was any trashier it'd be a junkyard. I was suspended because a teacher thought my camera was a bomb. Even after I proved to the principal and the police that it was just a camera, I was still suspended. Their reasoning is that they wanted to be perceived as being hard on bomb threats, which I'm all for, except for the part where everyone knew it was not a bomb. We had a student who just came in from Nigeria. One day some kid pulled the fire alarm for kicks, and after the count we noticed the Nigerian kid wasn't outside. So we started looking all over the school. The police were called and hours passed, still no luck. Towards the end of the day someone heard whimpering out of a very small space behind the Coke machine. We took a look, and there he was, curled up with tears rolling down his face, shaking uncontrollably. A teacher reached out, but he would push further back. Finally he was coached out and taken to the principal's office. As it turns out the fire alarm was the same as the one used to alert his community of an incoming gang attack, which often meant ethnic cleansing. The boy was a refugee and had no parents. I can only imagine the horrors that child has seen to react that way to an alarm. That experience has stuck with me my whole life, and serves as a reminder of just how good we have it in Canada. TLDR, refugee at my school hid because he thought the fire alarm meant ethnic cleansing was about to happen. Edit, no, I do not know how he is doing now. But I can tell you that after that experience he went on to be quite popular in school. His name is Mo, short for Mohammed. This is back in 1998, so for the life of me I cannot remember his last name, wish I could. Telling this story has really ignited an interest as to where he is now. Some dumbass got on one knee and asked a girl out. Asked her out. TLDR, I was a dumbass in high school. Our PTA lady died in front of the entire school when I was in 3rd grade. We had an assembly and she was speaking, and had a history of fainting. This time instead of fainting her heart stopped and she just fell over. It was incredibly sad. She was a really nice lady. Her son was in the audience too. Edit, I believe she was the principal's secretary or assistant, but she also the head of the Parent Teachers Association, so we just referred to her as the PTA lady. Not really disturbing, but I watched a kid get tased my 7th grade year. He was a very obnoxious 8th grade kid. Stood on top of a table in the cafeteria one morning and started doing pelvic thrusts. One of the teachers who happened to be around walked over and told him to stop. He hit her, and she proceeded to chase that bastard around until he dove under the table and got away from her. He ran straight into the school resource office. He then proceeded to punch the SRO in the gut pretty hard and bolted for the cafeteria door. SRO followed in hot pursuit. I went out to the hall to see what happened, and when I turned the corner, there the little ducker was on his ass after being tased. 10 out of 10 would witness again. Someone wrote on the bathroom wall, "Duck this school, bomb on Thursday," which naturally caused a big thing that obviously resulted in nothing. The next week one of my friends goes to the same bathroom with a Sharpie and writes, "Duck these muggles, basilisk on Thursday," which all the students found hilarious. The faculty, less so. Young girl who was always in trouble took her duckling to school one day, just walked around with it in her pocket. At some point she decided to take her shoes off, and was running around in and out of the classroom during class in just her socks. Sure enough, she slipped and fell. It practically exploded in her pocket. I can still remember her face and the screaming when she pulled a handful of mint duckling out of her pocket. It was as if the duckling's head had been degloved. When I was in 10th grade I was friends with an 11th grader we'll call Doug. Doug was a seriously damaged dude. Lots of family issues. He was currently in foster care, etc. We had basically become friends through a mutual friend, but got on really well. He was this tall kid with a mohawk and piercings, and people were sort of intimidated by him. I was top of my class, captain of the debate team, on the academic squad, etc. It was a weird friendship. Anyway, Doug had a best friend, another girl who was equally ducked up and damaged. And they loved each other, not romantically, but the way that people who truly have no one else who gets it love each other. So we're sitting in biology one morning, the only class we had together, when there is an announcement. Doug's best friend killed herself the night before. The class goes totally silent, and you can feel the air shift as everyone turns to look at him. There was this pause, like when something is teetering on an edge and you are waiting to see if it falls. It fell. He went completely nuts. Flinging desks over, hurling beakers and shit. The teacher hustles everyone out into the hallway. He's pulling me out the door as I'm begging him to let me go back and try to talk to Doug. I slipped back in as he was turning to call the office. I just sort of stood there while Doug continued rampaging. He sort of got near me and I reached out and put my hand on his shoulder. By the time the school resource officer and everyone else got there, I had him in the corner of a couple lab tables laying in my lap just sobbing. Fortunately, our SRO was actually a really kind lady, and rather than busting all, "He's a danger, blah blah blah," she very kindly asked me to ask him to walk to the office so we could sit and talk. She let me stay with him the whole time. It honestly might have been the first time I realized just how ducking badly life can suck. How badly it can kick people and just roll over them. When I was in grade 3, we had an 8th grader beat up a kindergartner over a basketball. Police and an ambulance were called in, and I saw the entire thing go down. To a 3rd grader, that shit was intense. Dude kicking a 5-year-old's ass when you are 13. That mother ducker needs professional help. A 15-year-old girl smashing another girl's head into the side of a bus, while a bunch of other people filmed it on phones. Reason given for the head smashing? The second girl started dating a boy the first one split up with several years before. Edit. Since it's been brought up a lot, yes, the first girl and the boy started dating when they were 12 or so, and it only lasted a couple of months at most. This isn't uncommon where I grew up. World star. A girl at my school was giving a dude a blowjob in one of the bathrooms at my school. She started having a seizure, and the guy wasn't sure what to do, so he just went back to class and left her there. Someone eventually found her and they called security. Not sure what ended up happening to the girl. There were always rumors that one of the art teachers in my school was a pedophile. He wouldn't give actual lessons. He'd just tell us to draw, then sit at his computer for 10 minutes before going into this little cupboard for a few minutes, after which he'd come out and wash his hands. He'd repeat this maybe 2 or 3 times during an hour-long class. I always just assumed the rumors were exactly that, until one morning we went into school and the police had cordoned off the entire art department. They seized the computers, on which they found something like 10,000 photos of indecent images of kids, including some of pupils from our school. Duck you, Mr. Gray. Not disturbing, but in 3rd or 2nd grade, my friend brought stink bombs to school, the ones that inflate with pressure, and gave one to me and kept one for himself. Before school started we were playing on the playground, and just as I'm about to go line up I check my backpack, and mine was inflated. I quickly throw that shit as far away as I could. Some native kids ran over there and started stomping on it thinking it was funny. Before mine went off, I kicked my friend's backpack. Asshole move, I know. His started inflating as well. He threw his as far out as well. Some more kids went over to stomp on his. Both blew up, and about 10 to 15 kids had to go home because they stunk so bad. My buddy and I got ISS for a month. 10th grade English class, new girl would sit in the back of the room and dig into her wrists with a safety pin. She wasn't there a week before she did enough damage at lunchtime to pull out one of her veins or some shit. Edit. If I recall correctly, many people reported her, but she weaseled her way out of help until the lunch event. She never came back to school after that, and I can only hope she got the help she needed. For the people wondering about the age, this was 10th grade in America, so 15 to 16 years old. In our school we had these huge fences that were spiked at the top. Our 11-year climbed to the top of them and everyone gathered round the bottom while he shouted about how great he was. Then the teacher came over and told him to get down, and as he was about to, he slipped and his ring got caught on one of the spikes. They were thin spikes. He fell down and survived the fall, but his ring had ripped off all the flesh from his finger, and everyone could see it all hanging at the top of the fence. A girl in my grade, apparently purposely, OD'd on some pills in the 2nd floor bathroom. It was during 2nd period, and for some reason the bathroom nearest to my class, where I usually went, was closed, so I walked a ways down the hall to the next closest one. I enter the bathroom, and as I'm about to go into a stall I look to the floor and see someone lying on the floor of the handicapped stall across from me. I tried the stall door and it was locked, so I crawled under a bit and got a grip on this girl and dragged her out. Checked to see if she was breathing, and from what I could tell she wasn't. I ran out into the hall and yelled to the nearest hall monitor, staff, I spotted, and told her to come quickly and radio for someone to call an ambulance. Within about a minute she and a few other people had gathered around and were trying to administer CPR. Not sure what happened after that. The lady I'd flagged down, notorious in our school for being a serious bitch, started yelling at me while another staff member was asking me questions, saying that I was crowding the area and needed to leave. I never saw the girl again, but apparently she lived, which is good. Also I saw my middle school principal get punched in the face, kids being breathalyzed at multiple high school functions, and my sister saw a pig that was let loose in the school as part of senior prank have a heart attack and die. Edit. So I see breathalyzers are a school staple these days. Delightful.